Hello everyone, it gives me great pleasure to welcome you to today's session. My name is Pádraig Sheeran and I'm Head of SME for Three, so I'll be your moderator for today's roundtable discussion, and it's titled 2018 Priorities for Irish SMEs, Essential Business Technology for the Year Ahead. So this discussion is underpinned by the findings of the 2017 version of the Irish Business Mindset Report, and that was compiled and published in Q4 2017. So a bit of housekeeping to start. This webinar is being recorded. It's primarily so we can share it with our grandchildren in years to come, but more importantly, it's a recorded version that we make available and shared with all participants within a few days. And because it's roundtable, we do welcome your participation via questions and answers, so feel free at any time to submit your questions through the chat window on your screen, and we'll address them at the end. So let's start by meeting our two speakers. So first, we're joined by Nicola Mortimer. So Nicola is Head of Business Products, Marketing and Operations at Three. And if that doesn't sound busy enough, she's also leading Three's own digital transformation initiative. So thank you, Nicola, for taking the time out of what is obviously a very busy schedule.
Thanks, Pádraig. Good to participate.
And we're also joined by John Kennedy. So John is editor of Silicon Republic, and his name is complete. He does have the very cool initials JFK. So if you follow John on Twitter, you'll see what the S stands for. So you're very welcome as well, John.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
So if we're all sitting comfortably, we'll kick off. And the first thing we'll do is we'll talk a little bit about the current business climate. So we saw in the survey that cautious optimism is prevalent for 2018. And John, if I can ask you first, you're obviously immersed in the business and technology world. So is this consistent with your own view, and what do you think is driving this optimism?
Well, you're hearing things like Ireland being the one of the best performing economies in the world. It's hard to believe that it's 10 years since we had that economic crash, and at that time I bought my house at that time, and I was just thinking about devices and technology since then. So when I bought the house, I had a Palm Pilot device, and now we've moved forward to we're carrying iPhones 8s, iPhone 10s, whatever. But in terms of the optimism, I'm a bit conservative in this one, because no one knew back then what was ahead of us then, and right now I think it was Dennis O'Brien described Brexit as Dunkirk without the boats, and I'm a bit scared, to be honest. I won't say I'm totally terrified, but I think we're blundering into another historic episode, and personally, I don't have the benefit of being 10 years younger than I was then, so it's interesting. I think, yeah, let's enjoy it. I mean, Dublin is doing very well. Everywhere you go, there's buildings going up. I think across the country, employment is doing fine. But there are the frictions like accommodation, property prices have gone through the roof. It's all the right ingredients for a perfect storm. So I'm being quite conservative about the future. I think what we best can do as people and in our own lives is live in the present and try and be as rational about every decision we make, and don't overinvest but don't underinvest either.
Okay. And Nicola, if we think about SMEs, particularly who we obviously surveyed for this question, does the word cautious imply more hope than confidence, do you think?
I think it definitely gives an element of let's be careful and watch out, and I would say that is the best approach for SMEs in 2018. I mean, I think there clearly are some elephants in the room or in the economy that they need to watch out for. John has mentioned Brexit, but also then GDPR, which is a new data, the regulation that's coming in around data protection. I think for a lot of SMEs, they're really not sure the impact that is going to have, but yet we know they have to do a lot of work to be ready for that. And then on top of that, I think there's still the legacy of getting funding to support their business. Will they be able to get access to the cash that they need to grow? And I think it's about having a sustainable future so that we don't get caught up again in what happened previously, where it was boom to bust, that it's really about sustainability going forward. So the cautious element to me is people trying and being conscious of not reliving history, but actually making it a sustainable future.
Yeah, okay. So on the point you mentioned there about investment and financing, so if we move on to talk about where SMEs are prioritising their technology investments, so we saw that half of the respondents planned significant investment in business operation systems and infrastructure improvements. So do you think this is driven by the optimism we just spoke about, or are we still playing catch up a little bit after probably years of underinvestment through the downturn? John, if we can address that to you.
Yeah, well, I've been following technology for the best part of 20 years, and I've been both a cheerleader and offering admonishments now and then as well. And the thing about it is that I remember back in year 2000, the dot-com economy crashed. Basically, tech was anathema to a lot of people for the best part of 12 years after that. And it's only in the last, say, 5 or 6 years we had things like the Web Summits, the various escalating revenues by Apple and Facebook, and the fact that all our lives now have this digital intrinsic link. I think technology is at a point now where it's finally been realized that it's important, but we're also at a point where the real titans of tech, Apple, Facebook, Microsoft, Oracle, a few others, it's becoming a very small group who will end up buying a lot of companies. So I think businesses are fully on board with the idea that they need technology. Their kids use the technology, they use the technology. The thing where they're going to struggle is that where does it all go? They know they're not going to be next Facebook. We still have alarming figures like 60% of SMEs in Ireland don't have e-commerce transactions on their websites. And the other thing as well, I mean, what I take cues from watching companies, particularly the US companies and the European deep tech companies and the companies that are emerging, is it isn't so much about just what you invest in. It's about the ethos in your business. And I think I'm hearing terms a lot more. Everyone's talking about digitalization and how they go about that. But one term I'm hearing a lot is customer success. And where I hear customer success, I think goes back to the old adage, the customer is always right. But if you take that further into the 21st century, in the era of recurring revenue and subscription revenue, where a lot of businesses are trying to get to, because one thing about business is the hardest thing to do is to sell. And once you make that sale, the hardest thing is to keep that customer, and otherwise you can start all over again. So recurring revenue is king, customer success is queen. And what's happening there is that inside companies, you're going to have people who are these customer success managers and leaders, and their job will be advocating on behalf of the customer and fight inside the company to make sure the customer's needs and expectations are met. And I think that's the big thing. So you can spend a lot of money on CRM and web and connectivity and all that kind of stuff, but if customers are leaving because they're not happy, because you didn't invest in customer success, and that's more about ethos and your alignment of people, there I think there's the issue there. And I think that's the thing to watch in 2018 is what are you doing about customer success? What is customer success like to you? I think customer success really is the customers still coming back and signing checks to be your customer.
Yeah.
I think what's interesting is in 2016, when we did the same survey, we actually had 36% say that they were investing in business operation systems and infrastructure. And in 2017, when we did it, it had grown to 50%. But how I interpret that is actually business operations and systems and infrastructure is all encompassing almost. And without investing in that kind of baseline groundwork, in-house systems that support your external systems and your external engagement, you actually can't really achieve a lot of the other aspects, which might be marketing and sales programs or customer experience and user experience. So what I think actually is that the enablement of technology is now underpinning more and more of everything that a business does, as opposed to our companies not paying attention to the right areas. I actually think you have to go back to the ground and build from the base up, and this to me is a sign of that is what is happening in the industry.
And tangibly, John, would you have an insight into what particular infrastructure or the particular aspects that people are focusing on, and that's where the investment is going?
On the ground in Ireland, I think broadband is still a massive issue, and I've seen countless surveys where businesses would actually move in order to get the connectivity they need. That's a crucial one. I think one of the things that's kind of creates a cloud in people's mind and creates a kind of a gap is the speed at which technology is moving, and how fast and how furious the technologies are. And we're already talking about artificial intelligence and augmented reality when, as I pointed out earlier, most businesses still don't have a basic transactional website. And I think there's a lot of work to be done on the ground in educating businesses, not preaching them. One of the things the tech industry has done wrong continually is, when it does decide to educate businesses about stuff, it's usually to the point of just selling something. The key is businesses are bamboozled, they're suspicious, and they put it on the long finger. It's like most people in life, they'll procrastinate. And I think the issue there is that there's still a huge amount of work to help the digitalization of Irish businesses on the ground. That the government has its e-commerce vouchers and various things like that, and they have helped. But what you need is a kind of an attitude that transcends the entire country, and they're realizing that on the high streets, shops are still closing down. people may have more employment, they may have more jobs. Like if you look at Christmas, how many people bought their stuff online this year? So these are big fundamental issues that, you know, people would love to do business the way they did years ago, if they're a mom and pop business or a generational business, the way their parents did business, and it was all about people walking into the store. And in a strange way, technology is enabling that kind of attitude or ability to come back again, because every site you go to, I've seen on Tree's website, the minute you go on there, someone's there, can I help you? There's a message there, it's kind of trying to create that footfall. It's digital, it's not quite the same, you know, as, you know, talking at the parish pump per se, but I think in a strange way, it's coming around full circle to those values again, as you want people to come back, recurring visitors, recurring revenue, but that's really down to how you treat your customers. But the problem is we're not even at the, if you look at it as a big monopoly board, we're not at go. You know, we have so many businesses that still don't see digital as the way it's going. Every business is going to quintessentially be a technology business somewhere. It needs this digital lens, and I think there's a huge gulf there, and people think, oh, this technology is too hard for me, or I don't need to know this. This is for all the young kids. You know, the reality is, I mean, there are lots of people whose entire careers are being rejuvenated by technology, and businesses can be the same.
Yeah.
I think what's interesting there is the talk about when you go onto a website, and you mentioned the Tree website, that there is somebody there who is looking to engage with you. What I actually think is happening is that we're trying to make digital more human, so that you're missing out on that social interaction, which is the face-to-face, but actually we're trying to bring it in a digital fashion, which makes it more personal, because the whole drive in customer experience and customer success is around personalization. You know, you need to make your customers feel valued, and that is really about a personal experience. And that's what I think that is, digital is there, and it's not going anywhere, and we have to adapt to that. So it's about making that more human as much as we can.
Yeah, but that's almost where we're seeing a contrast, and you've mentioned the term customer success already, John, customer experience by another term. So we did see in our survey that, in contrast to increased investment in the operation systems, we've seen a reduction in plans to invest in improving customer experience. So surely that's, with always-on competitive pressure online, you have global competitors now, so surely that's a risk for small businesses.
Yeah, when I saw that statistic, or that finding, I thought, surely it should be the other way around, personally. I mean, we've got great examples in Ireland of companies like Intercom, for example, and they're enabling that kind of conversation. One of the things that always stuck in my craw about technology was we saw these big companies like Google and Facebook, but if you wanted to talk to them, you know, the only thing you had was an email address, and you couldn't really get to them. And you know, that was fine for a while, and they went and built their revenues up. And you know, you talk about business being social. I still think, you know, you still can't beat that old experience of people walking in the front door and knowing who they're buying from and feeling good about walking out the door with their purchase. And I think that's how does digital recreate that? I think that's a big question. I think the ability to talk to someone when you need them is there. I remember being in Helsinki just before Christmas, and I was trying to talk to the airline about some problem I had with a booking, and of course I went onto their instant chat thing, and no one was there. Right. And so I think there's a lot of ways where it can go wrong, but I think somewhere businesses need to kind of cultivate that old experience where you actually knew who you were buying from, you know, the person you may have talked to. Maybe, I know, you create social events where you reward your customers with something, you know, you do something that creates that kind of personable thing, but easier said than done. I mean, you know, people are talking of orders of magnitude now, and they're trying to, you know, sell to more people. You know, just because you buy an iPhone or a Mac from Apple does not mean you know Tim Cook personally.
Right.
How do you get to that? I don't know. I think that in this big world, you know, maybe with, you know, revolutions in augmented reality and virtual reality, maybe what Facebook's trying to drive in terms of that kind of communication journey, who knows? Maybe that could be it. I don't know, but certainly I think it's kind of going full circle, and I think you need to get back to that situation where I always spend money with that company, and I feel good about spending money with that company, and I'll walk away feeling satisfied with my purchase, and if I have a problem, they will sort it out. I think that got lost along the way, because we're in a world of, you know, quick and easy buys. You go into a shopping center, you walk away with something, a pair of jeans, you throw them away after a week. You know, people are going from, I think you're seeing other things happening as well. People are buying technology now, they want to fix it again. So you've seen these centers emerge in cities around the world where, you know, that old toaster you're about to throw out, you know, bring it in here and we'll all show you how to fix it. And I think there's a kind of something happening there too. So I think a lot of things are going full circle. I think the disposability of business, the disposability of technology is coming under the limelight. And I think people might want to build businesses that last, build relationships that last, and build technologies that last. So that investment you make in the phone should be longer than a year, I think.
Okay. And still on the customer experience theme, you mentioned GDPR at the beginning. Is there a possibility that the reduction in investment for customer facing or customer experience elements has been more driven by compliance concerns? In other words, they need to internally fix, whether with GDPR coming down the track and things like that. Do we think that might be a factor?
Well, I think it's back to get the baseline right, and then you can go out. I actually don't think that it's been ignored. I think to deliver the right customer experience, you actually have to have the right tools. Otherwise, it's about probably over-investing to achieve something that you could do more efficiently with technology, and that's what I think is the realization. If you invest internally first, it will allow you get that growth then externally and be able to do that. GDPR is definitely at the forefront of every company's mind to make sure that they're compliant, but I don't think that is stopping people from looking to the future. I think it's about getting ready for May 25th, which is probably just over 100 days away. So I think companies are looking at beyond 100 days, and they need to be ready then for what is ahead of them. And it is about making sure compliance, but then being in a position to go for growth. And that is what the digital economy is enabling. No longer do you need people to meet you and see you, where your footfall could be quite small. You actually have access to a world economy, and it's about getting your front door right. And if that's your website, well, get that right, because that's what's going to draw people in. So you've got much greater reach, but obviously you can't do it on the back of lack of compliance, because that ultimately could be a disaster.
I just think there, just to jump in there, I think GDPR probably hasn't yet been seized in that way, but should be seized as an opportunity to kind of remember, your customers and their data is important, but it's also a pretty good way to educate the business about where they're at in the world and how digitalized the world has become. Like, how many businesses today are in situations where their employees, they've got some of bring your own devices policies, others just bring their own devices anyway, and they don't have any policies. And yet, there's the possibility for them to throw a database onto their phone or walk out with a laptop that the data isn't encrypted on. I mean, just every year there is some situation where a laptop belonging to a government department or a bank goes missing on a train somewhere in Ireland, and no one knows if that data was encrypted or not. The worst disaster you can have is when you suddenly go and have to announce it to the press, and obviously disclose it to the Data Protection Commissioner. We've lost all this information. Now, the thing with GDPR that most people haven't talked about yet is the fact that in these rules, every consumer will have the right to actually sue a company in a civil court case. There's going to be a legal tsunami, because for so long businesses have taken so many liberties with data, selling on databases, sharing databases. Businesses don't realize that if a customer suspects their data's been mishandled, they could end up in court, and that's a big thing to bear in mind. So I think GDPR should be seen as an opportunity to educate businesses, not only about data protection and privacy in the first place, but the fact that this world is digital now, and your business is digital, and your data is tangible. It's not something that just sits on a shiny screen.
And I think for small businesses, I don't think it's about making it a very scary topic as to what am I going to do. There is lots of support out there that is available to help them work through it, whether it's through bodies like the Small Firms Association, with very practical approaches to make sure that companies are educated and ready to tackle it. It isn't about a massive investment. It's actually about taking a very practical approach to customer information and being authorized to use it. So I don't think we should use it. It's definitely something to be careful of and to be cognizant of, but I don't think it necessarily is a hindrance as well. It is about finding the opportunity in it too. So
okay, we'll move on to the theme of collaboration, and just I see some questions have already started to come in, so please continue to send them in, and we will leave time at the end for questions. So on collaboration, if I can stick with yourself, Nicola, we see more SMEs planning to invest more in improving collaboration with customers, employees, and with partners. So what form do we think this collaboration will take?
So I think it can be in many different forms. It can be technology-based, but it can also be community-based. And I think it's about getting the balance of both, actually, so that for me, the whole collaboration between partners and customers is actually about sustainability for the future. I think on one hand it can help with innovation, so keeping you relevant, knowing what people are doing or saying, also benefiting from other people's experience and learning off that. So I wouldn't say it's one answer to solve all collaboration. I think it has to be suitable for the type of business that you are, the type of customers that you have, and the community that you operate in. But what I would say is try all angles. Don't just rely on the digital side. The human interaction on that can be extremely beneficial as well for collaboration.
Okay. And back to the risk factor, John, you were mentioning about bringing your own device and people who bring their own device. Anyway, so does increasing collaboration bring more risk in terms of that more data being shared in more places?
Yeah, well, I think growing up in this world we're in, I mean, I grew up in a time when you used to walk around with blue discs in your bag and you walk through a shop and you hoped the magnetizer at the door didn't wipe the disc and your college project would be delayed, to a point where we're walking around with phones that can store like gigabytes of data. And you basically are in a situation where, you know, people are still learning. I mean, this Sunday is World Data Privacy Day, and people don't realize when they share a photograph, for example, everything about them is in that photo. You might just look at an image, but there's GPS data, there's all that kind of stuff. There's so much that people have to learn. But you know, I think we're learning it. I mean, the shock value of a virus that can shut down the NHS. We're being educated daily about this. It doesn't mean there's not going to be mistakes, and companies aren't going to be naive, or people aren't going to be naive. But so much we have to learn. I mean, even individuals. You know, your bank is never going to send you an email and ask you to rephrase information they already have about you, but people will still fall for that trick. I've seen phishing emails attacks in Irish, for example. There's a lot of these attacks are elaborate, very well planned. So we're all growing up in this time. But even in companies, you know, one of the biggest reasons why hackers are so successful is because people don't realize that you're not meant to click on that email. I mean, like, you could spend thousands and thousands and thousands on firewalls, and all it takes is someone just to click on the wrong email, and suddenly a phishing attack happens, the data's gone, or they're held to ransom. So I think we're in the perfect storm of education on that front. You can build the best defenses, but at the end of the day, if you're not educating your people and educating them just what to do with their data and how intrinsic that data and how tangible it is, I think that risk factor will always be there.
Yeah, okay. And Nicola, if I'm an Irish SME and I'm looking at my investment options and I'm hearing all these terms, including collaboration, what benefits could I actually get from more collaboration across my employees, for example?
Well, I mean, I think there are multiple benefits that you can get. I mean, starting with efficiency. So a lot of the collaboration tools, apart from some being free and that are available online, but also if you are investing in some, it can be license driven. So you only invest as you need and you downsize as you need. You know, so from an efficiency point of view, there are some strong benefit realizations of that. On top of that, you'll have cost savings, but that agility that it gives you also very good benefits from that. If you specifically look from an employee point of view, you know, I think being able to make employees feel part of a community that they're working for and really get engagement from your employees, again, is a really strong success factor for companies. We've already mentioned earlier on about access to talent, I think, for SMEs. So being able to hire if they need to hire, or if they're growing, they need to hire more people. And so being able to acquire good talent and keep them, I think that can be it can be a very community-based experience. So making people feel part of that and giving them flexibility to be able to be out and about, not in an office all the time to do that, is where collaboration can come into its own. And it might be as simple as using WhatsApp groups. So, you know, some of the tools that are there are free, and some obviously are not free. It's about what's right for your company and the employee base that you have, and that can be the benefit.
Okay, great. What I'm going to do is I'm going to move in just to the second part of our session, which is our Q&A. And some questions, as I say, have come in already, but please feel free to continue to send them for our next couple of minutes. So the first one is from Liam, and there's, I suppose, a couple of questions within a question. So are SMEs budgeting enough for infrastructure spend so as not to miss the opportunities out there? Have they built systems with online transactional capability? And where is the support out there for SMEs to assist and advise them? So who'd like to take that one?
Well, I think John already referred to e-commerce. And I would say that we are not investing enough on e-commerce. And again, I don't think it needs to be a very large investment. Obviously, you know, you have to have a website in the first place. But if you're not trading online, you are definitely missing out on an opportunity. And I do think that we have, there are some stats around what percentage of companies actually are trading online. And it is surprisingly low, as in less than 50% are trading online. And that is definitely a missed opportunity. But there are tools out there that are not expensive to be able to get you up to be able to trade online. And I think that that's definitely one that you need to look at. I guess going back even to an earlier point is it starts with connectivity. So if you don't have the broadband or the connectivity infrastructure in place, you're operating as an island. And that's, you know, if you wanted to look at it, definitely broadband connectivity, website, and the ability to trade online, to me would be very critical to sustainable growth, and invest in that. But it doesn't have to be a significant investment, because there are cloud-based applications out there that can help you with all of that once you have the connectivity.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I mean, I think, I said earlier, I've seen surveys where businesses feel they may need to move office just to be somewhere where they can get the connectivity. So that's somewhere, as an Ireland, we shouldn't be at that point. We should be further along, personally. But pointing out on terms of infrastructure and things a business can do cleverly, there's a really cool revolution happening in terms of business software at the moment. We talked about collaboration and some of the free apps. Slack, for example, is a really good tool for engaging employees. You will find as well, your ability to recruit people will be based on the tools they feel comfortable using. So things like Slack, Trello, various tools like that are free. You only start paying for them once you get beyond a certain number of users. The interesting thing is these companies are turning the business software world inside out, because in the past, a company like a giant software company would sell a license and forget about it, whereas today these companies are they're finding a way into companies by the simple fact that an employee might introduce and say it's a good way to keep the team communicating, and that works. And it's an interesting way of software being sold, because the users are driving this growth, not someone responding to a big marketing campaign or someone taking a CIO taking a big liberty on a big license purchase. It's happening by the staff. The staff they're all using mobile devices. All these software tools are available on them, and they're bringing them into the company. The companies are finding themselves being changed from the inside out, and you only start paying for these tools once you reach, say, 100 users or something, or 30 users. Then you get certain functionality, and it's a different way of buying it, and it works really well for small companies.
An interesting one, just from a question from Julie on the question of customer experience versus employee experience. Should the investment be 50-50?
Well, that's a good question. I think the way we're seeing at the moment, there's a bit of a talent bubble going on, or a skills shortage, in tech anyway. But what people will find is that employees will be attracted to companies not only by the kind of technologies and the opportunities they can use, but they're also going to be attracted by the values of the company. Yeah. And they will more likely join a company that's kind of more aligned on environmental values and moral values, ethical values, and I think that's something. So I think it's a 50-50 thing. I mean, you need systems to stay efficient, but you need something to keep the people there. You may or may not be able to pay the big bucks, but certainly people will always, join a flag when it comes to a value they believe in.
And the war for talent is raging, as we know.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we mentioned that unemployment is in decline. So therefore, the war on talent is even greater as that happens. So keeping the talent is key, but keeping the right talent that gives the right experience to your customers is really what it's about. And I do think, if the ethos of the company is about customers, you'll find to deliver that to customers, you're going to have the right ethos for your staff. Yeah. So almost one feeds the other. But I do think the customer is king, and that is the approach to start with.
Okay, we have a question around a top three. So Stephen has asked us, if you identify priorities for investment spend for general SME, what would your top three areas be for 2018?
Mine would be, first of all, broadband. Two, the actual look at all the free apps and cloud opportunities that are out there to bring into your company that could make your company just as relevant as a company in San Francisco. So, as I mentioned, there's Slack and Trello. Find ways of communicating. Don't get clogged down in email. And the third one, really, it's a hard one to say. I would say cloud as an actual overall way of doing things, because the software world ever since 2008 till now, the explosion in tech has been driven by the fact that people could get free and cheap space thanks to Amazon's web services. Businesses need to look at this way, because you need to start with connectivity, and once you have the connectivity, everyone's carrying a mobile phone, everyone's got a laptop, it's then how do you organize yourself and how do you promote yourself. And I think just like the way the software industry boomed in the last 10 years, it's been down to the fact that you don't buy as much infrastructure or equipment as you used to, but you can, once you have the connectivity, it's a good starting point.
And I'm going to add your website to that, because I think that is your front door. If people are to see you, that's how they're going to see you. And I think we did a recent blog, and your website is basically as essential to your business as your phone or your bank account, because if people can't find you, they're not going to know anything about you, and that's about your sustainable growth, and it's about your brand. Even if you're trying to attract somebody to the employee, as talent into your company, you probably find the first thing they do is look at your website. So I would definitely add your front door into your business is your website, and I would invest in that to make sure that you're attracting the right customers and the right people to work for you, and to make sure that you're optimizing yourself for search. Just assuming you have a website doesn't mean that people will find it unless you've optimized it. But again, there's lots of tools to help you maximize that, and then once you're up, it is a continuous piece of work. So make sure you're using the Google Analytics to tell you what pages they're going on, where they're getting lost, where people who are searching are getting lost, and continue to invest in that. And it isn't very resource intensive. It is just an ongoing piece of work that needs to be done.
Yeah, I'd like to just throw in an idea. Just came to my head there while I was listening there. Was so many different businesses aren't in the digital world because they don't feel they're digital businesses, but they have to be. And I'm thinking, so many opportunities. Hire a bright young graduate who's just out of college who is a native in these things, and they help you do things like user experience, customer experience, and come up with the right tools, and just help from the baseline up in terms of, the web. If a local shop doesn't have a Facebook page, for example, that's a no-no. They should in this day and age, because people will wonder, is the shop open at a certain time? It's basic things. There are a lot of really good things that are actually free, and you can start from there. But yeah, I agree totally. The web page should be your front door. But a clever way about it is, if you're a traditional retail or grocery business, someone just graduated from college and they just need to start in their business, put them in charge of digital and see what they bring to the table. It might be an idea.
Okay, so we've run out of time. It's amazing how quickly time goes when you're having a fantastic discussion like this. So just want to say thank you to Nicola and to John, and thank you to all our listeners and for your great participation via questions, and apologies if we didn't get to everybody's question today. If you would like to discuss any of these topics further, you can speak with the 3 Business Advisor. There's a number on your screen now. And if you're not already a member of the Business Learning Centre, you may want to have a look at the resources available to you there as well. So that just leaves for me to say thank you once again, and to say goodbye and good luck with your own 2018 priorities.